Let us look at this poem, The Arrow and the Song. I shot an arrow into the air. I shot an arrow into the air. It fell to earth, I knew not where, for so swiftly it flew, the sight could not follow it in its flight. I breathed a song into the air. It fell to earth, I knew not where. For who has sight so keen and strong that it can follow the flight of a song? Long, long afterward in an oak, long, long afterward in an oak, I found the arrow still unbroke, and the song from beginning to end, and the song from beginning to end, I found again in the heart of a friend. I shot an arrow into the air, it fell to earth, I knew not where. For so swiftly it flew, the sight could not follow it in its flight. I breathed a song into the air, it fell to earth, I knew not where. For who has sight so keen and strong that it can follow the flight of a song? Long, long afterwards in an oak, I found the arrow still unbroke, and the song from beginning to end, I found again in the heart of a friend. Now let us try to understand the poem. Look at this picture here. You see a small boy. Now how do you know that he's a small boy? Well, he is in a vibratory mood. He seems to be very playful, and he has played with a bow and arrow and shot the arrow into the air. And the arrow seems to have disappeared. Now look at what the second sentence of the poem says. It fell to earth, I knew not where. So here you see the boy has grown up and is now a little older, and it looks like he has searched all over for the arrow, but he just could not find the arrow. So the little boy played with an arrow, with bow and arrow, and he shot the arrow into the air, and it fell to the earth, but he could not find it. Now why could the little boy not find the arrow? The poet says that the flight of an arrow is so swift that nobody can have an eyesight that can follow it through the air and through the forest and locates its final landing. So, when the little boy shot an arrow into the air, he did not have an eyesight so keen and so fast that it could follow the flight of the arrow through the air and through the forest, landing finally in its place of rest. So the poet says that the arrow's flight was too swift and our eyesight cannot follow the flight of an arrow. Now let us move on to the second stanza of the poem. Now here a poet is writing a poem and he does not know what happened to the poem. He just wrote it and he just breathed it into the air. He breathed it into the air means he wrote it, maybe he published it, and that's it. But he did not know where the poem went. So, just like the little boy could not trace the arrow, now this poet is unable to trace where exactly his poem must have gone. He wrote it, he published it, but he doesn't know where it went. Why do you think that the poet who breathed a song into the air, why was he not able to find where the poem went in the world? Because the poet says that no one can have such keen eyesight that can follow a poem. See, a poem is just a thought. Who can ever find out where a thought flew into the air, where all it went, and where people could have read it, and whether it really reached any person or not, because we humans cannot have such a strong eyesight that can follow the flight of a poem, just as the little boy could not follow the flight of his arrow, so does this poet. He is unable to find where his poem went. The poet wrote a song, he wrote a poem, and he just published it. Published it means broadcasted into the air. But who will read his poem? Will people remember his poem? That is very difficult to say. The poet goes on to say that it is very difficult to follow the flight of a song. That means when a poet writes a poem and publishes it, we do not know how many people would have read it and admired the poem. Now let us look at the third stanza of the poem. The poet says that after many years, the little boy did find the arrow somewhere in the forest, and the poet also found his song. Oh, this is so beautiful. Where did the poet find the song? Well, he found it in those people who had learned the poem by heart. What the poet means to say is that when children play with bow and arrow and they shoot an arrow into the air, they may not find it immediately, but later on they may find it. Now, when a poet writes a song and publishes it, and he's just broadcast it into the air, he may not find his poem immediately, but he's sure to find it in the heart of those people who learn the poem by heart and recite it. So, what the poet says is that the song that the poet wrote may be by hearted by people, by those people who admired it. So, those people are the friends of the poet. They may not be actual friends, but they are friends because they appreciated it. Long afterwards, the boy found the arrow in the forest, and the poet, he finds the song from beginning to end. He will find the song in those people who appreciated his poem and learnt it by heart and are quoting it here and there.